Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for another of our Know Your Bits series. So I'm Lesley Gilchrist, I'm a registered midwife and also co-founder of My Expert Midwife. And I'm joined alongside by Karen McEwen, another one of our registered midwives at My Expert Midwife. So today we're going to look at tearing, all things tearing. And as frightening sometimes as that sounds, we want to talk about it so that we can actually help you prepare to prevent it and also do things and prepare for things that can actually help you in your recovery. This whole series on your bits has actually come about because, as a group of midwives working together in our office, we know that women tend to feel quite embarrassed when they're raising the subject of anything to do with their vulva, their vagina, anything like that, perineum. They do feel really quite embarrassed. So at My Expert Midwife, we thought we'll do a survey and we'll find out, actually, is this true? Is this just our gut, or actually, is there some substance behind this? So we did that. We sent out a survey to 1,000 women asking various different questions about how they feel about discussing their perineum, their vulva, their vagina. Is it a taboo subject? Do they know their anatomy? I think everyone else in the team was really quite shocked by the findings, Karen. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. We're just so used to the anatomy of the vulva, and we call it your bits or down below, but it is your vulva. And even the words aren't really commonly used by women. So it's no wonder that they don't know which bit goes where. And we actually found that 66% of women thought that there was a social stigma surrounding discussing their own genitals during pregnancy, even with their midwife and after childbirth. What we really want to do is kind of lift the lid on this and open up a conversation. So women are starting to use the right terms for their bits, that they know which bits go where and know which bits that are important. So we'd like to go through what you can do in pregnancy to protect your bits and what those bits actually are and what you can do to then protect everything during labour and birth. And then if you do sustain any tearing or, soreness or grazing, anything like that, best where all those bits are and how you can care for them and optimize your own recovery during this. I think that, we've got a really good resource on the website. It starts out by telling you exactly where those bits are. So, you can imagine it in your own mind. So you know where your clitoris is, your urethral opening, which is where you wee from, your vaginal opening, which is not your vagina. It's the vagina is inside of your body, but it's the opening that you can see there. Your perineum, which is quite important, and we'll come to that shortly. And your bottom, your anus, your bumhole, where you poo from. These are, and then not suddenly people think, oh, poo from my bumhole, sort of thing. And no, we need to normalise it. This is all normal bodily functions, normal parts of your body. So definitely take a look at that to familiarise yourself with those things. And we also talk about the different conditions that, you can develop in pregnancy. And that's normal, but know what you can do to help yourself through them. Things like piles, hemorrhoids, cystitis, increasing discharge that you might be, oh my gosh, what is this? What is a normal discharge to expect during pregnancy, and when you might want to think, I'm not sure if this is normal, and I maybe need to have somebody else have a look at it. So yes, all of these things really, as well as lots of information about, addressing how you can prepare for tearing as well.
And I think that's the important thing as well about the let's be honest tag that we use. It is about saying to women, look, actually, this is the majority of women that have this. Varicose veins in the vulva, you might not see them, but they're so uncomfortable. And it's being able to say to women, look, lots and lots of you will actually suffer from this, but we're talking about it So hopefully the women that are sitting at home suffering in silence will think, actually, I'm not on my own. Because I think, when we look at, the research, Karen, that we did years and years back, we look at the barrier to women actually seeking help to get the comfort and the treatment that they need. And that biggest barrier is they assume that they're the only one that's dealing with this because no one talks about it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, that's your area of expertise as well, isn't it? Perineal trauma. That's where, we all have different specialties at my Expert Midwife and different areas of interest. But certainly, we both have a background in clinical research. So we do get quite a lot out of, going back through the research, critiquing that research, finding that information and really understanding. And, we are going to really delve into what actually can be done antenatally, what you can do during birth, and then afterwards. But I think the big statistic that for me has always been a big sort of red flag frightener for women is this whole 90% of women will suffer from perineal trauma giving birth, those women that give birth vaginally, that is. And I think it's really important to remind everyone that 90% includes everything from the tiniest little graze that you barely feel, all the way to the larger, more complicated tears. But these large, complicated tears that may, involve your back passage or your anus, they are extremely rare. They are down at, 3.5% of that, those tears. So just to bear that in mind. And by doing some of the exercises that we're going to help you understand, it does reduce that risk. Nothing's going to stop it because this is nature after all. But hopefully this whole series that we're doing on bits will help with that as well. So Karen, will we kick off with pregnancy? And my absolute favourite that is really not talked about enough, pelvic floor exercises. If you do a pelvic floor exercise, so if you exercise any muscle, you're increasing blood flow to it. And if you can increase blood flow, if you do have any tears, then the recovery time is quicker because you've already got that collateral blood flow there ready to help the healing process. The pelvic floor, though, is also, it has a job to do in labour. So if you just exercise your pelvic floor, all you're doing is that one muscle. And what physios would say is you need to exercise that whole muscle group of your pelvis. So your pelvic floor, your deep and your superficial pelvic floor, but your hips, your pelvis, your thighs. And this is why Pilates is so, so good, because it encompasses everything. You're using your abdominal muscles, your core, you're helping to strengthen those, strengthening your pelvic floor, but you're using what we call compound exercises. So you're strengthening the muscles of your bottom, glutes, and your quads, your big thigh muscles, and all of it together is strengthening your pelvic floor with all the different insertion points that go on. So this is just something to bear in mind, that although we talk about pelvic floor exercises, they are much, much more effective if we do them as a compound exercise. And Pilates, or any sort of strength training that you would do, so squats, lunges, all of that sort of thing, are brilliant for that. So that is definitely my go-to pelvic floor exercises. And then afterwards, you would want to do them as well. But again, avoiding that need to just do them in isolation. When you feel fit enough to, you can get back to normal exercise. And most Pilates for postnatal, you can start again 6 weeks, 8 weeks, to speak to whoever's organising it. But do look into that. We've got lots more information on our website as well about that. So Karen, can you explain just a little bit more about perineal trauma? So what it actually is?
Yeah, of course. I think that, it is just such a broad term, isn't it? That, people are thinking, oh, well, what is it? Well, it can be anything from, trauma can be anything from bruising and swelling, which, can be, you've passed a baby. So obviously, it's going to be a little bit sore around your perineal area, to a graze, which is just a graze like you would get normally on your skin, but it would just be, you know, just inside of your vagina or on your vulva, somewhere, labia, that type of area. And the most common things, you can have tears of the labia, but the most common type of damage is to the perineum. And that is categorized in a first-degree tear, which just involves the skin. And generally, these do not require stitches. They perhaps might if they, you know, extend a little bit, but normally they're just left to heal naturally. And then there's a second-degree tear, and that involves the muscle, so the muscle of the perineum. And sometimes they are left, but on the whole, we recommend that those are stitched because they just heal better together and quicker. So they can be extensive or they can be very, very tiny. So, you know, it's just really does depend on what it is. Do ask your midwife or your doctor at the time to explain exactly what it is if you've got a second-degree tear or any tear. And then a third and a fourth-degree tear, it's around only 3% of women will experience this, but they are more complex and they extend into the rectum, so, well, into the actual anal sphincter, and sometimes the rectum, but that's really, really rare. And those need a proper repair with really good lighting. So they will almost always, I've never in my experience known them not to be done in theatre with really good anaesthetic, so your spinal anaesthetic where you're awake still, but so they can have really good lighting so they can get that really good repair that you need. So hopefully that will repair well and heal really well together, and you'll also get follow-up offered as well, which I think is important to remember. So you're not just going to be left after it's been repaired. You will have follow-up for that, and you know they'll make sure that that is healing properly and as it should be, and that you don't need any further input with that. So I hope that explains exactly what perineal trauma is.
And then Karen, over to you for perineal massage.
Yes, I think that when we talk about the perineum, we should also relate it to the pelvic floor as well, because it is part of that. So your perineum sits towards the back of your vulva, and it's in between the vaginal opening and your anus. So what we talked about before, and it's a thick piece of muscle, and it needs to thin down to paper thin during the birth of your baby. So that is quite a feat for your perineum. It is like a sling, is your pelvic floor, and it holds up all your pelvic organs. So when you think about your uterus growing and everything, and your baby growing inside of there, it's putting an awful lot of pressure onto things. So strengthening that pelvic floor is fantastic, but then massaging your pelvic, the area of your pelvic floor, which is your perineum, is even better. And you can start to do this from 34 weeks in pregnancy. So what you need to do is, we get quite a lot of questions coming in from women sort of saying, you know, I've tried to do this, and do you know what? I can't, you know, it's impossible, I can't reach. So I wanted to talk a little bit about not thinking that when you go to do your perineal massage, which is massaging the perineum with the oil and helping it to become softer and more stretchy, try not to look at it as like a bit of a sprint and getting into it straight away. Take your time, try different positions first. So you might want to sit on the toilet, you might want to put your hand right behind you to see if you can reach better. You might want to abduct your legs a little bit more, so you're sitting really quite, you know, with your legs wide apart on the toilet perhaps, or on a chair. You might be on the bed. You might have to experiment with quite a lot of different positions. You might find it easier reaching around the front. You might find it easier with your foot on the bath. So think about all of these things and try and find a position that is right for you, and start it off slowly. So don't think, oh, I've got to do two 2, 3, 4 minutes straight away. Think, well, today I'm going to aim for just trying to reach it, and trying to reach it in the best way possible. And just start off that way. Now, if you have tried all of those things and you've experimented wildly with positions and you still cannot seem to find a really effective way to do this, what we recommend is engaging your partner. So a lot of women feel a little bit embarrassed about this, and this goes back again to feeling embarrassed about your bits and embarrassed about your partner looking down there and having a really good view with, to do this perineal massage. So we like to think of it as a bit of a means to an end. So have a discussion with your partner. It's not for everybody. Some women, they just can't even face even having the discussion. But for a lot of women now, getting used to the bits and involving the partner can be really quite a bonding experience throughout their pregnancy. And to get help with doing that perineal massage really well and engaging your partner with that, we have loads of resources on our website. We even have a video, an animation, we've got blogs, working you all the way through the different steps. You can either do this yourself or with your partner. So that's about how to start it. And once you get started, you'll find that you should be able to build it into your routine. And by building it into your routine, 3 or 4 times a week, give your body a break. Don't be doing it every day. Give your body a break for that muscle to end up, being able to not repair itself, but to recover, because it needs to recover again for then you to try and stretch it again. And when we talk about perineal massage and stretching, I think women also think, oh gosh, I'm going to end up all like distorted and it's going to be really weird down there. But it's not. Your muscle just has a memory, and muscles go back to, once they've stretched, they go back to what they were before. So you'll do this, but your perineum will go back to how it was before, but it will just remember. And it will also give you psychologically a really good grounding for how things are going to feel at the birth of your baby. Because sometimes it's quite a stretchy, stingy, burny, and if you're not sort of prepared for that, then you can find it a little bit frightening. But if you are prepared to feel that stretch, that things are going to stretch, it's going to be for a really short amount of time as well. But you can feel that stretch and you'll know then, right, I recognise that from me doing my perineal massage. I recognise that must mean my baby is really close. You'll recognise that, you won't be frightened of it, and you'll embrace that feeling, because that'll be about you knowing your body is working, it's stretching as it should be, and your baby's coming. It's the last hurdle of your labour, basically.
I think as well, you were talking about the muscle memory and the muscle stretching. I think for everyone, it's important to remember that in the same way that you would if you were doing yoga or, for gymnasts and things like that, people that are really, really flexible, there's a strength that comes with that flexibility as well, and that stretching and, flexing of those muscles. And, you don't see, yogis and gymnasts with sort of saggy hamstrings, because that's exactly what that muscle does. It stretches and then it's back to where it was before. And again, using a really high quality oil will also help to keep that skin elasticity, but help as well to promote the skin integrity too. And you can use any sort of oil as well. You can use your cooking oil under the cupboard. It would need to be food grade, but you don't have to be buying absolutely specific oils. But there are perineal massage oils that are developed for that purpose, and certainly ours is infused with essential oils to help with everything that we just talked about there. So will we move on to labour and birth?
Absolutely, yes, because I think this is such a little talked about subject. And we really do need to lift the lid on talking about how you can protect your perineum during labour and birth. I think a lot of people just think, oh, I'll just go with the flow, just see what happens. But, you know, there are things during labour and birth that will be really beneficial. And, you know, the first thing I want to talk about is positions. So if you're having an active birth, that's great. You can get into the position that your body's telling you to get into, and always listen to your body as well as your midwife. But, you know, you can adapt these positions and your body will kind of want to birth your baby in the most optimal way. And it's normally upright. So it's normally in an uprightish position. And that spreads. So that spreads the pressure of the baby's head rather than it all, when you see on TV and in the media, people being on a bed to birth the baby, you get a lot of pressure down in your bum. And that's what helps to, you know, maybe not have as equal a pressure, and for you to maybe experience a tear that maybe might have not have been as much of a tear had you had more of an even spread of that pressure there. So in an upright position is optimal, but also lying on your side. I mean, that's brilliant, isn't it, for women with epidurals? And if you choose to have an epidural and you are laying on on the bed, then just be turned, what we call it, left lateral, so onto your left hand side, and then you can have somebody support your leg, or a piece of the bed will come up to help support your leg to open your pelvis whilst you're birthing your baby. And again, that spreads the pressure. And so ask for these things, and also, you know, discuss these things, put them in your birth plan, speak to your midwife about this as well. And also, there's another thing that's very little talked about, which is the warm compress during labour. Now, there's lots of research to say that this not only helps with comfort for during birth and afterwards, it also helps to reduce the extent of tearing. So why aren't we doing it? We wonder. Well, it takes a long time to get these things into practice. And this is something you can ask for, and you don't really need to be, you know, have loads of preparation to do it, because your midwife in her delivery pack will have everything that you need to create this warm compress. We've also got a guide on our Know Your Bits guide, which goes into more depth about warm perineal compresses. And if there's any doubt from your midwife at the time of birth, there's a guide. There's a guide to exactly how to do this. So there's no reason, and it's a step-by-step, 7-step guide to doing the warm perineal compress. And you only need this compress at the point of crowning. So as your baby is stretching that perineum, like we talked about the perineal massage, it's stretching, it's becoming thinner, that warm compress goes on. And the reason it works so well is it dilates those blood vessels there. And once your blood vessels are dilated and there's more blood to the area, then things stretch more easily. You've been doing the perineal massage, fantastic. And then you'll have your warm perineal compress, and that'll help even further with things. And yeah, I just think that helping people to know that that's something that will not necessarily, you know, make sure you don't have a tear, because nobody can guarantee that. And there's an element of genetics in it all, isn't there, Lesley? With your skin and how stretchy it is. But it can just help you just optimize your chances of reducing that.
And you can put that in your birth plan as well. So, you know, your birth plan, your midwife will look at this when you first arrive in labor, or when she gets to your house and you're in labor, you know, and you can also, you know, raise it again with her, just to remind her that, you know, that this is what you want to do. And it's really well evidence-based as well. So this isn't just midwives thinking this or someone said it. There's been a lot of clinical trials that have been done on this that have actually shown that it does reduce that risk. I think that's it for sort of labour. So we move on to recovery and what you can do, because I suppose part of that is the preparation as well. So, you know, for me, my big thing for recovery is pain relief. Make sure that you've got adequate pain relief. Pain is the mother of all problems, because if you've got pain, you're not sleeping. If you've got pain, you're reluctant to eat properly. And when you've got both of those, so you're not getting the calories you need and you're tired, you get very, very anxious, you know, so your anxiety levels increase. So keeping on top of pain helps keep you more comfortable as well. So stock up on paracetamol and ibuprofen. If you can take ibuprofen, you can check with your midwife, your GP, your pharmacist, but most women can. It's fine to take as well if you're breastfeeding. And make sure you take it regularly. Karen, I mean, I remember, you know, when I was doing community midwifery and for, you know, postnatal clinics and things, and women saying that their perineums were absolutely killing them, and asking them, you know, when did the last take pain relief, and they hadn't been taking it. And it's all very well thinking, oh, I don't really like to take tablets and painkillers and things, but it really does affect your sleep, and your sleep affects your mood. So it's the quickest and easiest thing that you can do for yourself is stocking up on pain relief, so it's there should you need it. Perineal sprays, like our Spritz for Bits as well, that was developed for pain relief, for antibacterial properties, to prevent infection and speed up healing. So something like that as well. And, you know, keeping that wound clean. So changing your pads regularly, and by regularly we mean at least every 4 hours. Having comfortable pads. A lot of women find reusable sanitary pads much more comfortable, but they won't have the same absorbency, because it's for your period, and your blood loss after childbirth is heavier. But you can sit them side by side and just change them more regularly. That's a comment that a lot of women have about their sanitary pad or their maternity pads they're really bulky and uncomfortable. So just during pregnancy, just test out a few different options for you and see which are sort of more comfortable as well. Anything cool as well. So ice packs, gel packs, anything like that help to take down the swelling. Gel packs are great. The only problem is the coolness doesn't last long. It's just a few minutes. So if you're going to buy one, you probably need to buy 10, just so that you've got a stock constantly in the freezer. Baths are brilliant for just relaxing, easing these soaked tired muscles. It will help you to sleep better. Just that whole relaxation of muscles helps you to sleep and to unwind. You can add some essential oils into that bath as well, some tea tree, some lavender, and just mix it with some milk, and that will help too. Epsom salts are brilliant, because, you know, your body has worked very, very hard in labor. So Epsom salts in the bath as well, just to help get rid of these toxins. You know, you think you've probably done a few marathons, depending on how long your labor was. And, you know, marathon runners, they will use Epsom salts for that recovery. So it's absolutely brilliant.
I think that also we should talk a little bit about optimizing yourself in this situation as well. So, you know, if you've got a tear, then obviously you need to look after that, and, you know, make sure, like Lesley says, that you're changing your pads regularly, washing your hands before and after, so you're not introducing any further bacteria into that area. But also, by prioritizing your own recovery, you're also looking after your mental health as well, because we talk a lot about tears and the physical recovery from them, or even just soreness and grazes and physical recovery from that. But the physical recovery is only going to be helped more if you are mentally in that right space to recover. So you're looking after yourself, you're making sure that you're getting enough rest, that you've got people who are helping you around you, not people who are just coming to see the baby and perhaps maybe aren't as welcome as some people are. make sure that you choose really carefully these people, and that they are helping you rather than just coming around and interrupting your recovery time. And also, just making sure that they bring things that maybe aren't for the baby, just but for you and your partner, your family, a new family, that are just really going to help you out, like, hey, a curry for your freezer, or a pie for tonight, or they're going to maybe, run the hoover around as you're going for a rest or something like that. You have got to really prioritize yourself and recognize, especially if you've had mental health problems previously, or you have any risk factors for that, be really mindful. Have this conversation with your partner and your family to recognize that, it can be a little bit of an up and down time, a bit of a roller coaster after you've had a baby. But for them to be able to recognize when, hey, she's not getting better, things aren't as they were before, and maybe we need a little bit of input here from somebody who's specialised. There's perinatal mental health teams that you can tap into. There's charities like Pandas who can give you advice and signpost you to different places, and it might be that your partner needs some help too surrounding this area. So prioritising your mental health really will impact upon your physical recovery as well.
So we talked about tears, the sort of larger tears, and they generally we'd always advise with anything that involves the muscle of your perineum, we would always advise that, unless it's tiny, that you have some stitches. And the reason that we advise stitches is because we know from evidence that it does reduce the risk of infection, because it's healing up. So rather than a wound healing, because it heals from the bottom very, very slowly, the skin, the muscle, it's all pulled together, so it heals all at the same time. Now, the important thing to remember, though, is if you've got stitches, they can sometimes come undone. It's not common, but the biggest risk factor for it is an infection. So if you find that you're finding bits of the stitches and things, you do need to just ask your midwife just to check that you don't have an infection brewing. Most stitches that you have, the absorbable ones that go in your perineum, they will last about 4 to 6 weeks, really. Now, they're an irritant in your body, and if you'd had a cesarean section, we would be removing that on day 7, your stitches on day 7, because that's the maximum really amount of time that you would need for a wound to heal normally. Anything over and above that, and it gets irritated. So that irritation can be relieved by using baths again. But if you do notice any of that suture material, your stitch material, most women will see it when they wipe, check that it's not an infection. The other reason is sneezing, coughing. There's only so much give that your perineum will actually have, the actual muscle and the tissue that's held together by the stitches. And when you cough or sneeze, what happens is your perineum, you imagine your pelvic floor, bulges down and out, and that puts tremendous pressure on the stitches and the bits of tissue that are actually held together. So that's another important one. If you feel that you need to cough or you need to sneeze, get a sanitary towel and put it onto your perineum, so in between your legs, onto your perineum, and brace so that you're not putting that undue pressure on. Now, once you've got sort of 7 days, 5-7 days, and and you have no signs of infection, that perineum will have healed enough that there's not a reliance on the stitches anymore. So, but certainly for that first week, just bear that in mind, that you just want to avoid anything that will put that pressure down on your perineum. Anything else that you wanted to raise, Karen?
No, I think we've had quite an open discussion about everything about female genitalia, whereabouts it is. All these resources on the website, and they're all there for you to use for free. And you just dive in and learn loads more about your bits and what goes where.
That's it.
And, you know, how you can engage with your bits. You know, I just feel like we're a little bit disconnected sometimes, aren't we? It's like,
Yeah.
and no, you know, this is part of you, and you know, we're as unique down there as our faces are unique. So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. As always, a pleasure. Thank you once again for joining us on our Know Your Bits series. You can get loads more information on our Know Your Bits page on our website, myexpertmidwife.com. So do go over onto that resource. It's phenomenal. We have webinars as well, but everything's on that page, and also our IGTV channel, YouTube channel as well. So thanks again. Bye.